धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुत्सवः.
So Krishna smiles and Krishna speaks, and Arjun listens. Arjun is in a listening mode. Now he's given up his kind of, scholarly approach. And he's ready to go into meditation of some sorts. And one thing I just wanted to bring up here, is I love what Shankaracharya wrote about his Madhurastakam. He describes Krishna.
Krishnam Jai Shri Krishnam Krishnam Sharanam Krishnam Sharanam Krishnam Krishnam Jai Shri Krishnam Krishnam Sharanam Krishnam
Krishna. So when Krishna smiles, it's Madhuram, Hasitam Madhuram. When Krishna speaks, Vachanam Madhuram. And the point is that his body language, his words, his smile, everything has this aura of, it's like when you go for hypnosis, it's not just the swinging pendulum, but it's the voice of the person who hypnotizes. So if you can imagine Krishna speaking to Arjuna in a friendly manner, as you remember, you said that it's not a sarcastic smile, it's a kind of compassionate smile. So that smile, that voice, that everything is carrying this message so deep into Arjuna that anyone probably will go into a meditation, especially of the words that he's talking about. So first he says, Ashotya ananya sochyatam. You are thinking about something and you are worrying about something that is not worth worrying about. And that must be, interesting for Arjuna. I mean, he's listening completely, but he thinks that he's got something very important that's causing this problem to him. And Krishna comes and says, it's not worth worrying about. So his curiosity must have peaked. I mean, why something so important to most people, life and death, or relationship, and Krishna is saying it's not worth worrying about. I want listeners also to listen from a point of view, especially if you are not active and not driving or something. The words that come up after this first verse to 11, they are worth meditating upon, asking the question, who am I? So I want to hear from you about the beginning of Krishna in this way.
Well, I think what happens is Krishna as a guide or as a teacher takes a very compassionate approach towards the knowledge he is going to impart to Arjuna. And Arjuna is also ready to receive because he understands his shortcomings of his knowledge. And so he is in a very intense recipient mode. And that's when the lessons are best absorbed. Krishna says, do not worry about those negative emotions that you are fostering at this point. This is the present situation, and those kind of thoughts have no place for it. And then comes the verses 12 to 18 that we are going to talk about. And these are really gems percolated from Vedanta to a very comprehensible form of Gita.
So you can carry on, because 12 is the one where he says, there is something inside you, Arjun, and there is something inside me, and there is something inside every one of all of us, not only in those times, but even today, that lives on.
Yes. And this is the first concept of beautiful Vedanta philosophy. It is the nature of Atman, nature of Brahman, and their affinity towards each other, and how it relates to the body or living being. Okay.
So when you say Atman, that is the one that is
Soul.
inside you and me.
Yes, that is the soul within us.
Okay. And that
Okay.
is what
And
Krishna is talking about, that
yes.
you
And
do not know that we have been in the past in some other form, bodily form, and we will always be in the future in some bodily form. Is that the Atman he
yes,
is referring to?
yes, it is the life energy of this universe which makes everything happen is Brahman. And a little spark of that is within every living being, the soul. And the attributes of Brahman is also the attributes of Atman. Okay? And this is a fundamental precept of Vedanta. And this is what Krishna brings in, that he says there is never a time that I was not there and you are not there.
Right.
Okay? Which means we are the soul and the Atman and the Brahman are eternal.
Yeah.
And now they are embodied in the form of Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna is caught in the Namarupam, that is in the name and his bodily identity. That's why he has forgotten who he is originally. Krishna remembers that origin, so he remains in the mode of Brahman and he performs his duty as Brahman. Now, here I want to point out one thing is that in Mahabharata's Krishna, he is a conciliary, he is a wise counsel to the Pandavas. In Bhagavad Gita, he is portrayed as a representative of Brahman who is embodied, sometimes which is called avatar.
So you're bringing up two things in this, beginning of what we are talking is what in the West say, the theory of reincarnation. So we keep coming back. So that is one thing, which is Arjun, me, you, whatever, or whoever, we all, recycle. Or the next verse mentions about, it's like Dehe Kaumaram Yovanam Jara. So at the same progression, like you are a child, then you become adult, then you become old, and then you die, and then you become a child again. So this cycle keeps on going. The other concept you are saying, that many of us are kind of have this Atma, and we strive to become higher in that journey to know Atma or to know Brahman, whereas Krishna is Brahman himself embodied as Krishna. And it's like someone, Osho expressed it once. So Krishna is both son of God and son of man, and both components are in one in his embodiment. Does that describe what you're saying?
Yes, Krishna is higher consciousness embodied. Arjun has got a slightly lower consciousness embodied.
Yeah.
And from here, Krishna enlightens Arjuna from here on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I mean, I'm not trying to refute what you're saying, but there is also another way of expression of the same thing. Instead of saying higher and lower, is that Krishna knows that he is there. Arjun doesn't know, or you and I don't know.
Yeah, it's just
So
semantic,
we
and
have a
that's why,
potential of knowing.
of course.
Right. That's what he's trying to get Arjun to know and experience.
Yes.
And that's why at the outset I said, if you are listening and if you have a space, then it may be a good idea to close your eyes and also feel, who am I? Am I the body? And I think that Ramana Maharshi had focused on this who am I technique. And you go on, look, am I the body? Am I the mind? Am I my breathing? And you feel that you are none of all those things. Then who are you? And that thing that remains unanswered for us most of the time in the beginning, but you can experience that is the Atman that you're talking about, right?
Yes, in this verse that you mentioned,
Yeah,
the physical body with which we most of the time identify,
right.
in Vedanta it's called Namarupam, name
Yeah.
and form, we identify, but this body is impermanent because it goes through few phases and then it ultimately extinguishes
Yeah.
or it passes away. And then the whole cycle starts. But the emphasis in my mind, this verse has the impermanence of the body and the permanence of the soul.
Yeah. And we are coming to that, sloks, the verse 16 touches that more strongly.
Yes.
But before that we have been there and you have been there. And then next, he talks about the progression of, it's like child to adult to then. And then he gets into, it's like the experience of that, what our body experiences is one thing, but the Atma remains kind of untouched by that. Sukha, dukkha.
Any emotion or thoughts that evolves because of our contact with the sense objects, okay, all these thoughts are impermanent, okay, they come and go.
Right.
Okay, so we must learn how to have an equanimous attitude towards all these feelings. Okay, so there is no permanent sorrow, there's no permanent happiness, and we should know that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes there is a confusion in people's mind about equanimity. It's like, if you get good news, don't be happy. If you get, bad news, don't be sad. I don't think that's the meaning of this. Because knowing inside that, yes, this will happen, this is part of life. But it doesn't mean that if you get a good news, don't say happy birthday.
I mean, I look at it with a different concept,
Yeah.
that I think the word happiness and bliss are often confused. Happiness of excitement is transitory. Bliss is permanent within you. That's called inner peace. Okay. When you get a good news, yes, you feel good, but you also know at the same time that it is not permanent. There's nothing bad in feeling good about it, but you must know the impermanence of these things. In Buddhist philosophy, impermanence is very, very important, and that's what it is also emphasized here, that how you develop equanimity towards all the emotions and feeling. Okay, so that your mind is pretty stable through all these excitement or depressions, bad and good. Okay, so
I get it, Amitabh. I totally get that. And I think people are getting it too. But do you want to have a long face and a sad face all the time? Just
no,
you don't want to express. Because Krishna, if you look at him, he's a happy person. He he dances, he plays music, he goes and goes with cows, and he was probably the first cowboy on earth, and he's happy wherever he is. So that happiness, that energy coming out of him, doesn't mean he doesn't know inside that happiness and sorrow are part of the same coin. But not expressing is what many people feel. That if you are, and that's not my understanding of Krishna's message, when he says that if you should have sukh and dukh saman, you should treat them equally, means that you don't get happy and don't get sad. Because even Ram, in Ramayana, when Lakshman had, he was shot with this arrow, with kind of his own, life and death situation, he cries there. So not expressing is not what Krishna means or any of the Upanishad means, is my understanding.
You see, I think what you said is right, and I also think the same way. But what I think, equanimity does not mean a flat affect.
Right.
Equanimity means that you are happy, you are sad, but you know within yourself that you are blissful and you have the knowledge this will all pass. These are all impermanent.
Yeah, you have that realization.
That's all. So
That is the important part.
Krishna stays in that state of mind, although he seems happy, does things, but within him is that knowledge. That's why in the previous verse he says that there was never a time that I was not there, you are not there, because you are Brahmanatman, okay? And I have not forgotten that. So I'm in this world doing everything, but I know that I all belong there. That's where my root is. So he doesn't have a flat affect, he's equanimous.
Then comes the one that you have been talking, which I definitely I love that verse. We have talked about it. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sata. This is what you were talking about, right? Permanent or impermanent, or sat and asat. The whole world can be divided into these two categories. Sat, which is always there. Asat, Asat doesn't mean, it's not true or something, but it simply means that it has a life. It has a beginning, it has an end.
Yes, that's very much so. Actually, this is again an Upanishadic thought brought into Gita. It's well expounded in Kathopanishad, this thought. But in Gita, it succinctly says that one that gets destroyed, okay, or one that is impermanent, that is unreal, okay? But one that never gets destroyed, that is absolute reality. So, in other words, they mention that the soul and the Brahman is indestructible, therefore they are the absolute reality. All the physical thing that we see and where we live and where we act, at the bottom line, they are impermanent. Okay. So in Gita, we'll see later on, there are 3 chapters devoted to this absolute truth and relative truth. We live in the world of relative truth. There are chapters which is called Jnana Vijnana Yoga, knowledge and wisdom, Sat Asat, real and unreal, Kshetra and Kshetraga, the field of knowledge and knower of the field. So this thought is well expounded and well explained in those 3 chapters. So in this particular sloka, he directs what is absolute truth, what is relative truth or unreal. And that's a very important distinction to make in our life and towards equanimity.
So Sat and Asat.
Yes.
And Sat means that which is always there.
Yes.
Asat means something
Yes.
that has a life, beginning and the end.
We might see that in Upanishad that asatoma sadgamaya, from asat lead us to the sat, from unreal to lead us to real. And this is what Krishna is doing right now to Arjuna, making him understand.
So since you brought that word, asato, can you
Asat,
say that
asat
and explain it to people?
tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, asato ma sadgamaya, mritormi amritagamaya, om shanti, om shanti, om shanti.
Okay.
Lead us from darkness to light, from unreal to real, from death to beyond death. May peace prevail everywhere.
So basically, it comes down to the same simple thing, Sat, which is always there, Asat, which has a beginning and the end, and in between.
That's right.
So the reason I think Krishna is talking about this, after all our discussion, is simple. He's saying the body that Arjun has, or Krishna has, or you have, or I have, has a finite, is Asat. And the
Exactly.
Atma inside is Sat. That's
Yes.
the bottom line, right?
Yes.
So that is kind of beginning from the fact that you have been there before, I have been there before, and we will always be in the future. From there he starts, then he talks about the feelings that come in between. If you have the body, you will have all these other things. Like I said, if you live in Michigan and I live in Maine, we will have a snow, we will have the four weathers, four seasons, and how best can you live in that condition? So if you have a body, and you will have ups and you will have downs. I personally feel when you have ups, yes, be happy, but know that you are, that's temporary. And when you're sad, be unhappy, but know that, all these things you will have to go through life. This is life.
The great Sanskrit proverb is Chakravat Parivartante Sukhanicha Dukhanicha. Okay. The happiness and the sorrow just rotate alternatively in a cycle. Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing about it, the mental state of blissfulness gives us equanimity. This is the most important part. What you said, yeah, if it's a good occasion, you feel good. If it's a bad occasion, it's all right to feel bad. But because you have that inner knowledge of blissfulness, Satchidananda.
Why is Krishna bringing it up here? Because we saw that Arjun was worried about he's going to kill people, his gurus or his, respected grandfather and many other cousins and uncles and all those people who are coming to fight. And what a shift of whole conversation. He's thinking about, all the attachments he has to them and how can he kill them. And here comes Krishna and he says, they are all impermanent. They are all here and will not be here tomorrow, whether you kill them or not.
That is true. You see, Arjun associates with names, bodies, position, social position, and all those things. Okay. Krishna, on the other hand, he looks at from the even keel or equanimous position of mind. He sees that everything is destructible, what in the physical form he is seeing. Even the war will also end one day. Okay. So he can foresee how it is, and he keeps his mind absolutely still and firm on this through this phenomena. Arjun is very myopic about this event.
When we say Arjun is myopic, but most people think that way. Not
Yes.
many people think what Krishna is talking about, right?
Yes. Yes, that's true.
Yeah,
Very true. And that's why we get our emotional upheaval with all these things.
right. And
Okay.
I think that's another reason when he talks about the emotions here, like, sukh and dukh, happiness and sorrow. I think he's also he can see that if the war happens, people will die. And, Arjun's son dies in that
Yes.
Mahabharata.
Yeah.
So, and how traumatic can that be? So, it's not, what he's saying is not just theoretical. This is going to happen, and it is happening in our lives too.
It is very practical.
Yeah.
If we are involved in a war, for whatever objective it is, okay, death is inevitable on both sides.
Yeah.
Okay. So Krishna tells him what is the motto of his duty, what is the greater good and lesser evil, what is the impermanence of the body and the character that he is associating with. Okay. And in this situation, he guides him through Arjun's commitment to his duty with a very stable, equanimous mind.
Yeah, he goes into the body is a kind of asat. There is something sat inside us, which is always there. And this body will go through, hot and cold, like the weather, and hot and cold inside, like the sukh and dukh. Those things, ups and downs, will happen. And you don't need to worry about, ashotya ananya shochatvam. You are thinking about unnecessary things because this is how the reality is. And then, go ahead.
Those emotions are transitory, and it is too much attachment to that is diverting Arjun's focus
Yeah.
in that context of war.
So because of this 11 to 17, now he comes to say, Antavanta ime deha, nitya sokta sharirina. So now he's saying that, all this is nashwan. It's like, this is going to go away. So, hey, Arjun, get up and fight.
Yep.
Tasmat yuddhasva bharata.
Yes.
So again, the last one we finished with uttisthata parantapa. Now he says yuddhasva bharata. So it's like in his message, there is a purpose, there is a goal. What Krishna is not just blabbering about, it's like this knowledge. He's answering Arjun's deep concerns, not only the concerns of his mind, but it's also concern of his soul.
He is just imparting the wisdom of impermanence of many physical world and physical body. And he wants Arjun to fight or take part in the war, play his character, play his role with a mental state which is totally different than his previous confused state. And he therefore inspires him to get up and now do his duty, which is to fight as a warrior. And that is the essence of it.
I think you said the word, and this word comes to me is fog of war. It's like one of the fogs of the war is emotions, right? So yes, this will happen up and down way is bound to happen. People are bound to die, and don't just think that you are killing them. They are not permanent anyway.
Yes. It is not a callous attitude. It is a statement of reality. Okay. So it is wisdom. It is never to be interpreted as a callousness.
No, that's a very good point you said. That's what I was trying to say, that, when you have happiness, be happy. It's not a dry kind of, phenomena. It's not, there is no callousness. I mean, it's not tough on Arjun. He's just being realistic. This is the truth, the ultimate truth.
That is right. And this is what I often get into discussion with others, okay? That this knowledge of impermanence of physical world, physical body, and all those things, and therefore you are not active. It is neither callousness nor being inactive. It is being in everything with that wisdom at the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And that is a subtle difference. A lot of people confuse that. Okay,
Yeah.
That it is flat affect, callousness, or how can he say these things which will cause destruction?
Right.
No, it is reality of life. You approach it as your duty, knowing fully well there are good things and bad things can be happening. This analysis has to be there, and then take part of it with that frame of mind. That's what is important.
I think this is phenomenal. I think I get clarity as well, as I said, in the last time we talked about that, this is such a nice exercise we are doing and sharing with others. And, as we share with others, we also, what did you say? Let us study together, sharpen
Sharpen
our
our intellect discussion, and may we not bear any ill will towards each other.
Yeah, but I always love that piece that you sometimes don't mention, sahaviryaya karvavahai. I like the positivity. I mean, that's important.
धर्म क्षेत्र और कुरुक्षेत्र में मन को मोह का शूल मिला है।